Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been impaneled to deliberate on the case before you, the State of California versus I Hate the Environment Incorporated, where the defendant is charged with environmental negligence resulting in significant damage to the local environment. Environmental negligence, as defined by California Statute 403.161, involves the failure to exercise reasonable care to prevent harm to the environment, which includes the water, air, and land upon which people, animals, and plants depend. The prosecution alleges that the company I Hate the Environment Incorporated, in the operation of its manufacturing facility, has unlawfully and negligently discharged industrial waste into the California River, causing pollution and harm to wildlife. The defendant denies these allegations, asserting that all operations are compliant with environmental regulations and permits. Your duty is to determine, based on the evidence presented, whether I Hate the Environment Incorporated has acted negligently and, as a result, caused environmental harm. You must consider the testimony of witnesses, the exhibits submitted into evidence, and the arguments presented by both the prosecution and the defense. To establish environmental negligence, the prosecution must prove the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt: that the defendant had a duty to prevent harm to the environment, that the defendant breached that duty through action or inaction, that the breach of duty was the direct and proximate cause of the environmental harm, and that the harm resulted in actual damages to the environment or to individuals who use and enjoy it. You will hear evidence and testimony from the environmental experts, local residents, and employees of I Hate the Environment. The experts will provide insight into the environmental impact of the alleged discharge, while the residents and employees will offer first-hand accounts of the practices at the manufacturing facility. Environmental experts will discuss the nature of the pollutants, their potential impact on the river's ecosystem, and the long-term effects on the environment. They will also address the standard industry practices for waste disposal and whether the defendant deviated from these standards. Local residents and activists may testify about changes in the river's condition, the presence of industrial waste, and any observed effects on wildlife and recreational activities. Employees may provide details regarding the facility's operations and waste management protocols. As jurors, you are the sole judges of the credibility of the witnesses. Consider each witness's ability to observe, their memory, manner while testifying, any interest in the outcome of the case, and the reasonableness of their testimony in light of all the evidence. While intent to harm is not required for environmental negligence, you must consider whether the defendant acted with a lack of reasonable care. Negligence may be found if the defendant knew or should have known that their actions would likely result in environmental harm. The defense may argue that the facility operates within the bounds of environmental laws and that any harm was not due to the defendant's actions. They may also present evidence of compliance with environmental regulations and permits. The prosecution contends that the defendant's disregard for proper waste disposal protocols directly led to the pollution of the river, and that the defendant failed to take necessary precautions to prevent environmental harm. In your deliberations, you must consider the totality of the evidence presented. If you find that the prosecution has proven each element of environmental negligence beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant guilty. If, however, you find that the prosecution has not met its burden of proof, you must find the defendant not guilty. Your verdict must be unanimous. You will be provided with a verdict form where you will indicate your decision. It is your duty to apply the law as instructed to the facts as you have found them to be. This case is of great importance not only to the parties involved, but also to the community and the environment we all share. Deliberate with care and render a verdict that speaks the truth according to the evidence presented to you. As you begin your deliberations, it is essential to review the guidelines that govern your discussions. Each of you must have an opportunity to express your views and opinions about this trial. Deliberating is not a contest of persuasion, but rather a collective effort to reach a verdict based on a fair consideration of the evidence. Remember that it is the quality, not the quantity, of the evidence that must guide your decision. The law requires that the prosecution's evidence be more convincing than the defendant's evidence. It is not necessary for the prosecution to prove its case beyond all possible doubt, it is only required to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Consider the testimony regarding the environmental impact of the defendant's actions in this case.